There is one country that every major power on Earth needs right now. Not the US, not China, Turkey. In July 2026, Turkey hosts the NATO summit, the most important military alliance meeting in decades. 2 weeks after that same NATO summit, Turkey's president is scheduled to host Vladimir Putin. Turkey's Bayraktar drones have changed the outcome of 5 wars on 3 continents, and it sells them to both sides. Every year, $3 trillion worth of goods flows through the narrow strait that runs through Istanbul. That same year, Turkey hosts the UN Climate Summit for nearly 200 countries in the resort city of Antalya. NATO summit, Russian ally, drone superpower, climate host, one country in 1 year. How? The answer starts 12,000 years ago. Because Turkey has been the world's crossroads for longer than recorded history. By the end of this video, you'll know Turkey's deepest wound, its most dangerous hidden card, and whether you should actually visit in 2026. This is why Turkey matters in 2026. This is Göbekli Tepe, the world's oldest known temple complex built in Turkey 12,000 years ago, before Stonehenge, before the pyramids, before agriculture. The Trojan War happened here. Troy was a real city in what is now Western Turkey. Alexander the Great swept through Turkey in 333 BC. He was so confident he cut the famous Gordian knot with his sword instead of untying it. The Romans loved Turkey so much that Ephesus, now a ruin on Turkey's coast, was the second largest city in the entire Roman Empire. In 537 AD, the Byzantines built the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, the greatest church on earth. It would hold that title for 1,000 years. Then in 1453, Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II conquered Constantinople. The Eastern Roman Empire ended. The Ottoman era began. Turkey became the center of the Islamic world. For the next 600 years, the Ottomans ruled an empire stretching from Vienna to Baghdad. They gave Europe coffee, tulips, and algebra. Wait, tulips. The flower that everyone associates with the Netherlands, invented in Turkey. The Dutch imported them in the 1600s and then kept the credit. 1915, World War I, Gallipoli. 130,000 soldiers died on these cliffs. It was the defining national trauma for Turkey. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk dismantled the Ottoman Empire and built a secular republic from scratch. New alphabet, new capital, new constitution, in under a decade. 1952, Turkey joins NATO. A Muslim-majority country becomes a core member of the Western Military Alliance. The Americans were delighted. 1999, a devastating earthquake kills 17,000 people. It exposes structural corruption that will haunt the country 24 years later. 2002, Recep Tayyip Erdogan's AKP party wins. A former Islamist mayor takes power. He will not leave it for the next 2 decades. 2023, another catastrophic earthquake, 50,000 dead, the same structural failures. Erdogan wins re-election anyway, 6 weeks later. And that moment in 1453 is when Constantinople fell, is the reason Turkey is doing something extraordinary in 2026 that no other country dares to do. Look at the map. Turkey is the only country on Earth that physically bridges 2 continents, Europe and Asia, through one city. The Bosphorus Strait is the only sea route connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. $3 trillion in goods passes through it every year. Russia's entire Black Sea fleet, including the ships used in Ukraine, must pass through Turkish waters to reach the open ocean. Turkey controls the switch. Under the 1936 Montreux Convention, Turkey has the legal right to close this strait to warships during conflict. In 2022, it did exactly that. Turkey's southern border touches Syria, Iraq, and Iran. It is the geographic buffer between a stable Europe and an unstable Middle East. Without Turkey, chaos flows north. To the northeast, the South Caucasus. Turkey has military influence in Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. It is the only country that can call a ceasefire and have it respected. Turkey is NATO's only Muslim-majority member. It controls the alliance's entire southern and eastern flank. Remove Turkey and NATO loses half its strategic geography. Istanbul Airport is now the 3rd busiest airport on Earth. More people pass through Istanbul than through any city in Europe. Geography made it inevitable. Which is why, in July 2026, every NATO leader, including Donald Trump, is flying to Ankara. Not Washington, not Brussels, Turkey. Turkey's economy is the 17th largest in the world. $1.1 trillion GDP, often overlooked because it keeps getting overshadowed by political drama. The drama is intentional. Turkey's lira has lost 80% of its value in 5 years. Yet property prices in Istanbul rose 32% in 2025. Foreign investors seeing Turkey as a bargain created a real estate gold rush. Turkey's defense exports hit $7.1 billion in 2024. Its Bayraktar drones are now used by over 50 countries. Turkey sold to Ukraine, Azerbaijan, and Ethiopia simultaneously. The UAE pledged $50 billion in investment in Turkey in 2023, the largest single foreign investment pledge Turkey has ever received. The Gulf states are making Turkey their partner of choice. Turkey received 60 million tourists in 2024, more than France. Its 2026 target? $68 billion in revenue. Most visitors have no idea how geopolitically important it is. Turkey receives 40% of its gas from Russia. Erdogan turned this into leverage, positioning Turkey as the main gas transit hub between Russia and Europe. The money flows through Ankara. China's Belt and Road Initiative runs directly through Turkey. China is building railways, ports, and factories on Turkish soil as part of this trillion-dollar trade project. Turkey controls the Black Sea straits. It exports combat-proven drones. It's the main gas transit route to Europe, and it hosts 60 million tourists. You do not ignore this country. In 1918, the Ottoman Empire controlled 3 continents. By 1923, it was carved up by European powers into 20 separate countries. Turkey kept only the Anatolian heartland. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 planned to partition Turkey itself. Greek troops in Izmir, Armenian territory carved out. It was the deepest humiliation in Turkish national memory. Ataturk launched a military campaign that reversed the treaty. Turkey survived. But the lesson was seared into the consciousness. Europe cannot be trusted. The West will carve you up. Erdogan has built his entire political identity on that wound. Every speech about sovereignty, every rejection of Western criticism, every arms deal, all of it traces back to 1920. In 2020, Erdogan reconverted the Hagia Sophia into a mosque, reversing a 1934 decision. Western leaders were furious, but Turkish approval surged. It was about reclaiming what was taken. Turkey applied to join the EU in 1987. It's still waiting. This rejection is why Turkey started building its own drone industry, defense systems, and alliances outside the West. The 2026 NATO summit, selling drones to both sides, the gas deals. It's all a single continuous response to 1920. Turkey is rebuilding what was taken. In 2026, the US-Israel war on Iran has reshuffled every alliance in the Middle East, and Turkey is, somehow, deeply involved with every side. Turkey is a NATO ally. It is hosting the NATO summit. It has sold weapons to Ukraine. In theory, it is on the Western side. In practice, Turkey never sanctioned Russia. It continues to buy Russian gas. Its banks continue to process Russian transactions. It became the main bypass route for Russian goods. Turkey shares a 500-kilometer border with Iran and trades $10 billion annually, even while Iran is at war with Turkey's NATO allies. The border remains open. Turkey's foreign policy is a business model. Sell drones to Ukraine, buy gas from Russia, trade with Iran, and host NATO. It's not hypocrisy, it's strategy. Meanwhile, Turkey is hosting COP31, the Global Climate Summit. A country that runs on Russian gas is now the global host for climate action, only in 2026. On July 7th and 8th, Donald Trump flies to Ankara. It will be his first visit to a NATO ally's capital. Erdogan has been waiting for this moment. Turkey also hosts the Organization of Turkic States Summit. It is quietly building an alternative alliance that nobody in the West is paying attention to. 3 world summits in 1 year, every major power on Earth flying to Turkish soil. This is not an accident. It is a strategy 30 years in the making. In 2020, Turkey's Bayraktar drone destroyed an entire Armenian armored column. Azerbaijan won the war. The world took notice. In Ukraine, Bayraktar drones went viral. One drone destroyed $80 million of Russian equipment in a week. There was even a hit pop song about it. The drone was designed by Selçuk Bayraktar, Erdogan's son-in-law. One family controls Turkey's most powerful export. They control every unit. The TCG Anadolu is the world's first vessel converted into a drone carrier. Turkey has pioneered a form of naval warfare no other country has replicated. Turkey is developing the TB3 and Akinci combat drones. By 2028, Turkey will be the world's third largest drone exporter after the US and China. Did you know Istanbul has 150,000 street cats, all fed and loved by residents? They have their own documentaries and corner at every cafe. Turkey's second hidden card, its TV shows. Turkish DZ are watched in 150 countries by 700 million viewers. It's normalizing Turkey's worldview worldwide. Drones plus DZ equals global influence. Turkey is a superpower that hasn't officially announced itself yet. Or that Turkey contains a 3,000-year-old underground city in Cappadocia for 20,000 people, with kitchens, cellars, and churches carved by hand. And the word cherry comes from the Turkish city of Giresun. The Romans found them there and named the fruit after the city. 60 million people visited Turkey in 2024. That makes it the fourth most visited country on Earth. There is a reason. Istanbul is one of the cheapest major cities for Western tourists. A full dinner costs $8. A hotel in the old city is $40. The Hagia Sophia is free, but go at 7 a.m. before the tour groups arrive. At 9 a.m., it's 10,000 people. At 7 a.m., it's yours. Cappadocia is one of the most photographed landscapes on Earth. Book the balloon 3 months in advance. It sells out in 2026. The Turkish hammam is a cultural experience every visitor should try. Fair warning, there is no concept of personal space. It's excellent service. In Turkey, refusing tea is considered rude. It's a social contract. You will drink approximately 12 glasses before you buy anything. What you must eat: balık ekmek, kokoreç, and künefe. Do not leave Turkey without eating all three. Your cardiologist will disagree. Turkey is generally safe for tourists in 2026. Avoid the southeastern border regions. Istanbul and the coast are very safe. Most Westerners get an e-visa easily for $50. Do it before you fly. Airport visa queues are notoriously slow. Let's zoom all 6 lenses out simultaneously and watch how they all point to the same conclusion. The geography. Turkey sits on the only strait connecting Russia to the sea, Europe to Asia. Remove Turkey, and global trade routes collapse. The money. Drones in 50 countries, Russian gas, 60 million tourists. Turkey is the world's most profitable neutral party. The wound. Everything Turkey is doing in 2026, the NATO hosting, the Russian gas deals, the drone empire, is a single long response to 1920. The flashpoint, 3 world summits in 1 year. Turkey positioned itself over 30 years to be indispensable to everyone simultaneously. The hidden card. A drone designed by one family has changed the outcome of 5 wars and made Turkey an indispensable military tech exporter. The tourist truth: it is magnificent, shockingly affordable, and slightly overwhelming. Go before everyone else figures that out. Turkey is not the most powerful country. It is not the richest. It is something more useful. It is the world's switchboard. That is the bigger picture. But if Turkey is running both sides, there is one country at the center of the biggest conflict of 2026. The real story of Iran is not the war. It's what comes next. That video dropping soon. Subscribe to get notified about more such videos.